They did not arrive with fanfare or fleets of war. They arrived in silence, majestic, radiant, and incomprehensible. They wore forms we could understand, bipedal, humanoid, sometimes winged, often luminous. They taught, ruled, built, and eventually vanished. Across every ancient civilization, from the Fertile Crescent to the jungles of Mesoamerica, from the Indus Valley to the Nile, humanity told the same story in different tongues. We were visited. We were taught. We were ruled. And then we were left alone. In modern times, these stories are labeled as myth. But what if they are memory? A distorted recollection of events too extraordinary to preserve with clarity, yet too impactful to forget. What if the gods of antiquity, those luminous beings with thunder in their voices and stars in their eyes, were not gods in the divine sense, but advanced beings? What if they came from beyond the earth? Or from dimensions of reality we are only now beginning to understand? This book is not an exercise in fantasy. It is a synthesis of myth, archaeology, esotericism, and forbidden knowledge. We seek to understand who these beings were, why they came, and how their presence influenced the rise and eventual fall of the world's first civilizations. A curious phenomenon emerges when one studies the world's oldest civilizations. The same motifs appear again and again, separated by oceans, languages, and millennia. In ancient Sumer, the gods were called the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens to shape and rule mankind. In Egypt, they were the Nechiru, divine forces who walked among mortals. In India, the Devas and Asuras clashed across the skies in ancient flying machines called Vimanas. In Mesoamerica, feathered serpent gods like Quetzalcoatl came to teach writing, agriculture, and astronomy. These were not vague nature spirits or anthropomorphized storms. These were intelligent, structured beings, each with names, relationships, hierarchies, and missions. They had preferences. They waged wars. They demanded offerings, sometimes blood. They governed with laws. They passed down science disguised as magic. Even more striking is the consistent physical depiction of these gods: tall, radiant, often humanoid but exaggerated, some with wings, others with animalistic features, many with elongated skulls or glowing auras. These were not formless energies. They were forms that inspired awe. Why would entirely disconnected cultures create such similar divine archetypes unless they were witnessing or remembering the same kind of presence? This repeating pattern is our first clue. The gods were real, and they were global. Sumer, located in the southern part of Mesopotamia, is widely considered the cradle of civilization. It was here, among the ziggurats and canals of ancient Eridu and Uruk, that the earliest cuneiform tablets were inscribed with stories of the Anunnaki, those who came from heaven to earth. According to Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki were not imaginary deities. They were a pantheon of sky lords who descended to earth, led by Enki, the god of water, wisdom, and creation, and his brother Enlil, the lord of air and storm. These beings divided earth among themselves and taught mankind how to build cities, manage agriculture, and worship. They were not incorporeal spirits. They had thrones. They walked. They interacted. They ruled. Even the Sumerian king list, a real historical document, states that kingship was lowered from heaven. Some of these early kings were said to have reigned for tens of thousands of years, a feat only possible if they were not fully human. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's oldest surviving stories, describes contact with these beings and a desperate search for immortality. At its core lies a hint that the gods once walked with men and that humanity has since been exiled from that closeness. Could the ruins of Sumerian temples and ziggurats be not merely religious sites, but landing pads, command centers, or memory markers of celestial colonization? Egypt stands as the most visually symbolic ancient civilization. drenched in sacred geometry, astronomical precision, and iconography of beings that were both God and man. The ancient Egyptians did not separate religion from life. Their worldview was constructed around Ma'at, cosmic balance, divine order. And at the center of it were the Netjeru, gods with human bodies and animal heads, imbued with function, not fantasy. Osiris, Isis, Horus, Thoth, Anubis. These names are echoes of beings who shaped civilization. The pharaoh was not merely a ruler, he was considered a living god, the literal intermediary between the heavens and earth. His coronation was not just political, but cosmic. Who were these Netjeru? Why do depictions of Thoth resemble a man with the head of an ibis and Anubis with the head of a jackal? Were these symbolic representations? Or could they be distorted memories of real beings with hybrid physiology, perhaps altered genetics, advanced technology, or appearance-altering fields? The temples of Dendera, Edfu, and Karnak are built with star alignments so precise that they challenge modern capabilities. The Great Pyramid itself is encoded with the golden ratio, pi, and the dimensions of Earth. These are not the works of primitive desert dwellers. They are the fingerprints of knowledge from above. The gods of Egypt did not merely reside in myth. They were the engineers of cosmic order. And in the ancient Vedic texts of India, the Rig Veda, Mahabharata, and Ramayana, we find tales of war among the gods that read more like science fiction than religious hymn. The gods, known as devas, are locked in eternal conflict with the asuras, a polarity not of good versus evil, but of cosmic balance. These beings ride celestial chariots called Vimanas, which fly, hover, and even destroy cities with advanced weaponry. The texts describe energy weapons, anti-gravity propulsion, and armor that can make one invisible. Take this passage from the Mahabharata. A single projectile, charged with all the power of the universe, an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 1,000 suns, rose in all its splendor. It was an unknown weapon. Were these metaphors? Or were the authors describing events and technologies too advanced to understand, interpreting them through the poetic language of their time? Krishna, Rama, Vishnu, these divine beings interacted with mortals, displayed superhuman abilities, and maintained form. They had relationships. Some even had children with human women, producing demigods. The divine form was not formless. It was embodied. Ancient Indian temples and mandalas reflect complex knowledge of energy grids, star systems, and chakra technology. Were the gods of India guardians of spiritual ascension, or engineers from other realms who seeded that path? In the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text banned from biblical canon, we encounter a disturbing and detailed account. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. From these unions were born the Nephilim, giants, heroes of old, beings of immense power and stature who corrupted the earth. These sons of God were called the Watchers, or Grigori, a class of angelic beings assigned to observe humanity. But according to Enoch, they disobeyed divine law, descended to earth, and taught mankind metallurgy, enchantments, warfare, seduction, and sorcery. These weren't vague spiritual beings. They had names, roles, and a clear hierarchy. Their leader, Azazel, is said to have taught men how to forge weapons. Another, Semyaza, taught incantations and root cutting, early forbidden knowledge. The punishment? A divine flood to cleanse the earth. This tale echoes across cultures. In Mesopotamia, the Apkallu were sages who taught mankind, later imprisoned for corrupting humans. In Greek myth, Prometheus stole fire, knowledge, and was bound eternally. In Native American lore, star people descended and interbred with humans. In Mesoamerica, tales of giants often precede great cataclysms. What if these stories describe an actual genetic manipulation event? a crossbreeding between human and non-human intelligences. The gods main. The tale of Atlantis, first written by Plato, describes a golden empire founded by beings who descended from the stars or heavens. Atlantis was not merely advanced in technology, it was advanced in consciousness, possessing knowledge of energy, healing, sound, and light. Its rulers were the children of Poseidon, a powerful god who mated with a mortal woman. The result? A hybrid royal line infused with divine essence. Atlantis flourished for generations, but as the Atlanteans became prideful and sought conquest, their frequency fell. In a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the sea. Legends across the globe support this cataclysm. The Egyptian priests told Solon of a sunken empire beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Mayan records speak of Mu, or Lemuria, a land that fell due to misuse of power. The Bible tells of a deluge wiping out the wicked giants of the earth. Esoteric traditions suggest that the gods of Atlantis were beings of light, literally vibrating at higher frequencies, who lost that purity by intermixing with lower dimensions. Their fall wasn't just physical, it was vibrational. Temples and structures like those at Göbekli Tepe, Baalbek, and under the sea near Yonaguni may be remnants of this lost age. If so, the gods of Atlantis did not vanish. They were cast down, their empire shattered, and their memory encrypted into myth. The Great Pyramid, built with stone blocks weighing up to 80 tons, aligned perfectly with Orion's belt. Teotihuacan's layout reflects the solar system in proportion. Stonehenge predicts eclipses with precision. Nabta Playa in the Nubian desert predates Stonehenge by thousands of years. The Temple of Hathor in Dendera shows a bas-relief of what appears to be a giant bulb powered by energy. These were not random. They are blueprints, written in stone by those who knew, and perhaps had the technology and astronomical insight granted by higher intelligences. Even more compelling are cosmic alignments. Many ancient structures are positioned to mirror star constellations during solstices and equinoxes. Some temples encode the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year astronomical cycle, knowledge no primitive society should have possessed. Why did these civilizations go to such lengths to align structures to stars? Were they mapping the return of something or someone? Perhaps these aren't temples at all, but interfaces, gateways where energy, consciousness, and cosmic information intersected. The gods may have built in stone what they encoded in DNA, memory, geometry, prophecy. Mainstream academia scoffs at the notion of ancient astronauts, but increasingly, science and spirituality converge on a stranger idea. The gods were not extraterrestrial, but interdimensional. Quantum physics shows us that reality is not singular. Multiverses, folded dimensions, and parallel timelines are no longer fiction, they are theoretical necessities. In such a paradigm, beings could exist in higher dimensions and step down into ours, appearing as gods, spirits, or light beings. In shamanic journeys, ayahuasca visions, and near-death experiences, humans consistently describe luminous humanoids, teachers, watchers, radiant entities that communicate without words. In esoteric traditions, Kabbalah speaks of the Elohim, creators existing on higher planes. Gnostics describe the aeons, emanations of the divine mind. Hinduism explains gods like Vishnu and Shiva as avatars, consciousness projections. In Buddhism, bodhisattvas appear in form to guide those below. These are not necessarily physical beings. They may be manifestations of intelligence, clothed in whatever form the human mind can handle. Their humanoid appearance may be the interface, not the essence. Thus, the gods were real, but not in the way we think. They were and are consciousness constructs from beyond the veil, interacting with humanity across thresholds of perception. Why now?
Why is there a global resurgence of interest in ancient civilizations, lost gods, forbidden archaeology, and metaphysical knowledge? Because the cycle may be repeating. In Hindu cosmology, time moves in yugas, ages that rise and fall like breath. The Kali Yuga, Dark Age, gives way to the Satya Yuga, Truth. Many believe we are exiting darkness and returning to remembrance. Psychic awakenings, UFO disclosures, and the revival of ancient traditions point toward a reactivation. The gods may never have left. They may have gone dormant, watching from behind the veil, waiting until consciousness reached a new threshold. Esoteric lore suggests that at key moments in cosmic history, the gods return. Not with weapons, but with knowledge, energy, and light, not to rule, but to awaken. But we must ask, which gods are returning? Those of light, or those who fell? The future may not lie ahead. It may lie above and within, as we remember what the ancients always knew. The divine is not distant. It walks among us, sometimes in human form, sometimes in fire, sometimes in silence,